Everyone, this is Dr. Hurd, and welcome. Welcome to BUSA 6621 Executive Perspectives in Leadership. Thanks for joining today's podcast. And I am thrilled to talk with you today because with me is Christopher White, small business owner here in Dallas, Texas. And I'm going to introduce him here in a moment. But what we're going to talk about in the podcast is stress management and burnout prevention. And when we talk about that, you'll completely understand why Christopher's joining us today. Hi, Christopher.
Hi, Dr. Hurd. How are you?
I am well. Thanks for being with us today. It's so good to have you.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Now, Christopher, when I talk about stress management and burnout, for me, there are probably two professions that have the highest stress level. Okay. And when I think about them, I'm like, it's no wonder. The first one will surprise you probably, and it's dentist. Like
Uh,
their level of stress has been researched, and they're like, it's crazy stress. I'm not sure why, but apparently working in people's mouths is stressful. The second one is what you do. Okay.
mhm.
So could you share with the students who you are, your background, and what you do today?
Sure. So my background has been predominantly retail. I've done multiple jobs starting out on the floor of Macy's South Bullocks in Atlanta. I was in their squad program for management, moving up through the buying office. I've actually worked for a few different retailers, including like the Limited and Macy's. Then Macy's bought some other retailers, so it all kind of like comes back together. And most recently, just before this role and career, I was at J.C. Penney for 13 years. Again, working through all facets of product acquisition, including design, development, sourcing, and then going forward to packaging, label, marketing, and it was a lot of different aspects. So
And a huge responsibility. I mean, you had to source and travel for that at the executive level. And I just could not imagine anything being so intense and so stressful until you did your next career piece. What is that?
yeah, so about 8 years ago, we I bought a store, a gift shop that does gifts and home decor, and we've been running that. And 5 years or 3 years ago, we moved the store, which the only thing worse than there's nothing worse than trying to move physically all your stock from one location to another, and that was very stressful because we didn't know if the new location would work, if it would all kind of come back together. Were we going to break things during the
Mhm.
move? So
Oh
it
my
was a
goodness.
lot.
Well, and then as a business owner, now you have the complete task, liability, and reward of managing a business and the employees and the inventory and all of the related pieces. So I can only imagine
Yeah.
the level of stress that could bring on, Christopher.
Yeah, no, it is a lot. Uh, you just don't know what's going to stress you out next. It's kind of like there's
Yes.
many different parts of the model, and it's like when you get one kind of all set, something else can prop up and become the next stressor.
Well, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but your partner shared with me one evening where I think was it the chef who became ill or unavailable and you
Mhm.
guys had to hustle? And so
Yes.
this is, I think I would have freaked out.
Yeah,
Like, what?
right. It is because I mean the restaurant is very high touch, and it's each person has a role. And like I say to all the guests that come in, I say, the only job I can do on this side is go and wash dishes because I did it at 14 years old, and it has not changed a bit since I was 14. So, but yeah, when you kind of run into the problem of, a key person, the bartender, the head chef, you're kind of limping along there,
Yeah,
and you're doing it until closing. It's kind of like it's not like you get to call it a wrap and close it up. You're
right.
like,
Right. Oh my goodness. I think business owners, especially, and a lot of executives, they frequently ignore those signs of burnout. And sometimes they They develop routines that are unsustainable. It's going to lead to nowhere really quick. And also they remove the boundaries or the habits that protect their well-being, whether that's health or whether that's just, being around people who support them and more. And ultimately, it hurts their performance and their business performance. So I
Mhm.
want to talk about that with you. How do you recognize the early signs of burnout in yourself, Christopher?
So if yeah, and it's the bad day syndrome basically. If a day is really going downhill fast, the fire's getting bigger, the burnout is manifesting itself, and you start seeing the triggers where you're short with people, you're short with mistakes, a glass breaks, and frankly, they're not cheap glasses, but it's not the end of the world, but it sets you off differently when you're burning. And so I make that almost like a progressive state of burning out. And you to break the cycle, it's kind of hard because you've really gotta, it's like you gotta remove those stressors, take a breath, and find something. And sometimes it's a customer. Sometimes it is I in the kitchen, I take it back. There's another job I can do in the kitchen. I learned at an early age how to peel shrimp. So I can go back and I can take all of the shell and deveined shrimp, including the tails. So basically, you can just use the fork and the knife. Having your hands in cold water dealing with shrimp, and it's like it's monotonous, but again, it's predictable. And doing an exercise of predictability when things are going unpredictably is a stress reliever.
That's so interesting because what I heard you say is the triggers are cumulative and you've had the experience and you have the maturity to kind of start adding them up in the day.
Hmm.
Like one thing leads to another, and it sounds like you're able to kind of stop the swirl and say, I know where this is going. I need to just regroup here. I hope the students heard that and they recognize that when those stressors, those triggers start, especially early in the day, they can stop it. I also heard you have some boundaries or some habits that you use. I need a center. I'm going to go back and devein some shrimp. I'm going to go
Yeah.
back and wash a dish. Are there any other boundaries or habits that protect your well-being, Christopher?
Well, if I mean those are some of my early day what a panaceas for what ail ya. I would tell you that by five or six more than five, just kind of sitting down, having a glass of red wine, talking to a customer. It's like you've been on a full shift, and not to say that it's all clock driven because we can be open
Right.
till 10 p.m. But Tom and I have both kind of tried to balance the number of active hours we're on the floor. And that way, when we know that we are approaching, the coast time or the time to kind of wind it down to get out because we got to get home, we got to feed the dog, walk the dog, whatever it is, you change some of the things you're doing, and that's a nice wind down because things slowly kind of dissolve away. It's also that other people then pick up and run with the problem, whatever the problem may be. It's no longer
Mhm.
your problem.
Yeah, I like that. It's like the transition to back to center. It's like
Yes.
I really put in the work and now I need to transition. I don't think a lot of us do that. I think we go directly from tough, tough, tough,
Hmm.
stop, pivot, go home, and we haven't let ourselves kind of mellow into the pivot. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what I do know about you, and I want you to talk more about Leica here in a moment, but when it starts to get into the holiday season, you ramp up your social media. And then you go through a very prolonged holiday season with the gift shop and the restaurant and more. So, how do you sustain your energy across those long cycles of pressure and more? And you're hoping to meet the numbers that you set out for your business and more. But how do you sustain your energy?
So it's funny because I've been a Christmas buyer in one of my roles in the past for a department store. So at this point in my life, I don't put a tree up in my house because there was a
Oh,
time where I had
no.
four trees in my office, always decorated year round, and then I set the store now. But I consider Christmas almost like it's like a game of chess where you're just trying to get the pieces off the board. So we set Christmas, and then everything that sells is like another one is off the board. And my goal is always like, can I clear the board by really very early December? Because if you don't focus in on building it, selling it, not buying back into it, because that's what is a mistake I've made. It's a reoccurring mistake. I would say that it's like every third year, I'll be like, oh, I could get that in again. And I bet we could sell it. Never works. It's always that you sell it, it's great, and then you move on to next year and you make it part of next year's strategy. So, Christmas is a build and then a purge. And that's how you kind of approach it from a stress level, is that every sale is one less unit that goes to markdown or one less unit that gets packed up.
Very interesting. It's interesting that you said don't like repeat it because you don't want to repeat something that's just perhaps a future problem. So, given your experience in both the corporate world and as a business owner, what wellness practices would you recommend to leaders and perhaps to the students who are listening?
I think physical activity is important. I'm not going to say exercise because, to be honest with you, now that I'm open 6 days a week, running on 9 hours a day, there's not a lot of extra time to get to the gym. But everything I do in the store is very physical. I can watch my steps and exertion. I mean, we have very physical, like some large pieces of furniture that get moved around, bought, sold. But if you're not in that situation where your part of your job is physical activity, you got to put physical activity into your world because it again, it is a stress reliever. It is very healthy. We do things, I mean, we move things around the store all the time. Merchandising is a ever changing, ever moving game. I have a great quote. My CEO, who was a buyer at Carter Holly Hale in LA, said, being a buyer, being a merchandiser is like building a race car that's going around the track at 80 miles an hour and you're building the engine while it's going. And I always loved that analogy because it's true that you can't just stop and build. You are always in motion and the retail environment is the same. And I think if you have any business that's kind of like that, that you are building strategy, you're executing strategy at the same time, it requires a lot of active thinking and activity.
Yes. And that activity, that physicalness that you have in your store, I wish everyone had to burn off that last conversation with an irate customer or to kind of
Mhm.
burn off that irritant with the meal or whatever it is. And if you don't, you're going to have to be very purposeful around your physical activity, your
Yeah.
walking, your exercise, or whatever that is. For me, it's like a release. It's going to be okay. Any other wellness tips? And for the students, before we started the podcast, Christopher said, well, a glass of wine works too. So,
Yes. And again, we all have our ideas of self-medicating to kind of wind down and reduce stress. It's so funny because when I get home, I will get one glass and I'll turn the TV on and it's kind of background noise. And even like I can be either hyper engaged in a show or sometimes I just need to hear talking narratives just so that I can get to that rhythm. And so that's kind of another thing I kind of do, just winding down so that it's easier to kind of fall asleep, get to sleep.
That's very interesting because that segues into our last question about how do you help or what do you suggest to executives and the students listening build sustainable rhythms, leadership rhythms, stress management rhythms, and use what you said about turning on the TV and the glass of wine and just kind of the background noise. I had an executive in the Houston market who said, when I get home, I put on headphones and I'd listen to classical music. And
Mhm.
he was a music major through
Yeah.
college. And here he was a big banking executive, but that's what kind of helped him calm down, slow down, and listen. So, any other suggestions on how to build kind of those Stress management rhythms.
Well, the rhythms and your patterns should also support good sleep habits. I can't tell you the negative side effects of travel and then, oh, well, the US is coming online. I should go to bed. Let me just answer some of those emails. And that is just it was self-defeating because you stopped making sense in some of your emails at some point. I remember sending one email, it's like, what did I say? And then I wake up and I'm still just tired. And
Yes,
so I would say that whatever you can do that really encourages good sleep, a good sleep pattern, will manifest itself the next day and really help you kind of get into a groove healthier.
I agree. I think that's so important. It's healthy and it helps you mentally as well. So, Christopher, thank you for being with us today. And let's give another plug to your business. Could you tell the students a little bit more about that?
I can. So if you're in Dallas, Texas, far north Dallas, we have Lekka Retail Concepts, Lekka Retail Concepts. We are a gift and home decor store. We don't do a lot online because we are a high touch kind of environment. And then right next to us with a big cutout in the wall is Palette by LRC, which is our wine bar, craft cocktails, and tapas food. And it's all about the local art, your palette, your taste palette, as well as local art.
Very nice. Thank you for being with us today. And I hope everyone, and especially Christopher, has a great week. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.